Iruma is a virgin loser who was sold to a demon by his parents. However, the demon wanted him to become his grandson, and it became so weird for him. During Iruma's first assembly, Sullivan was announced as the new demon lord and promptly delivered a ridiculous speech that showered Iruma with praise and left him completely mortified. Afterwards, the representative of the new students named Asmodeus was called on stage, and his looks were enough to make all the ladies in the room start salivating. However, the announcers called up Iruma to give his speech in his place, and when he got on stage, he stood there cluelessly until Sullivan secretly handed him a sheet of paper which had some weird incantations. As he read the words, everyone around started panicking, and when he finished, one of the teachers informed him that he'd just recited a forbidden spell, which would have caused his body to explode if he said it wrongly. The teacher then started praising him, and when he asked what the spell did, the teacher said it would prevent him from tripping and falling the entire day. Afterwards, Iruma went to the courtyard where he was challenged to a duel by Asmodeus, who was jealous over the fact that he stole the spotlight from him. When the duel began, Asmodeus fired a barrage of flame attacks at Iruma, but Iruma managed to dodge all of them by hopping around like a monkey. The reason Iruma was capable of this was because he was such an unfortunate loser in the human world that he became a master at dodging dangerous things, and this strange ability was called the overwhelming crisis evasion capability. When the students in the crowd started insulting Asmodeus, he got so enraged that he charged at Iruma with a flame sword, and Iruma managed to parry his attack, causing him to fall towards a student in a way that would barbecue her. However, Iruma managed to stop him by finishing him off with a German suplex, and this made Iruma the most popular student around. A while later, Iruma was trying to figure out how to fix his predicament when Asmodeus suddenly came by and went on his knees as he asked to be Iruma's personal servant. The next day, Professor Kalego, the first-year teacher, stood before his mirror, adjusting his outfit while muttering about how he'd make Iruma's life a living nightmare during the familiar summoning ritual set for that very day. Meanwhile, Iruma was having a dream where his parents were sending a younger version of him on all kinds of tasks, and when they told him he'd be sold off to the demon Sullivan, he freaked out so badly that he woke up in the real world. Just then, Sullivan showed up in his room and started goofing off in a way that made Iruma accept his fate that he's been sold to a lunatic old man. During breakfast, Sullivan gave Iruma permission to stuff his face as much as he wanted, and Iruma initially felt reluctant to do so when he saw how weird the demon food looked, but he eventually tried it and was surprised by how delicious it tasted. Iruma spent the next several minutes enjoying a 5-star meal on the table, and eventually, Opera gave him a special tea to wash it all down. As he drank it, Sullivan brought up the fact that it was the first day of classes, causing him to spill the entire tea from his mouth, and he started to panic about the fact that the demons would have him for breakfast instead if they found out that he was human. Iruma said he wanted to talk with Sullivan about something school-related, but the old clown cut him off by showing him all of the school items he got to celebrate Iruma starting school. Sullivan then showed Iruma a hanky he made for him which had some special embroidery on it, and Iruma was shocked to see that his hands were all bandaged up due to injuries he sustained while making it. The old creep then showed Iruma a demon alarm clock he got him before asking Iruma what he wanted to talk about, and Iruma proved to be a total pushover once again by saying that he wanted to go to school. Afterwards, Iruma went off to school and Sullivan tried to make a TikTok video of his journey to school, but Opera dragged him back inside. At the demon school, the student council president Ameri spotted the other council members slacking off, so she yelled at them until they became vibrant again and started greeting every student that moved along like robots. When Iruma saw them, he decided that he'd try his best not to get noticed, but that idea immediately went down the toilet when Asmodeus popped up and went on his knees while revealing that he'd been waiting for Iruma for 6 hours. When he offered to carry Iruma's bag, Iruma said there was no need, and the students around were stunned by the fact that the wimpy kid made a servant out of the class head. As they walked to class, Asmodeus revealed to Iruma that they were in the same group before explaining that the 163 new students in school were divided into several groups to prepare for classes since they all couldn't do it at once. He then brought up the fact that they were having familiar summoning rituals that day and explained that it was a tradition at Babel's for each new student to summon a magical beast which would become their subordinate. He added that the student's rank would be determined by the magic beast they were able to summon, and climbing those ranks was what led to academic success at Babel's. As he explained, Iruma wondered if familiars ate humans. When they got to the hall, Asmodeus explained to Iruma that their rank would determine what class they'd end up in, and the girl Iruma rescued during their duel tried to approach him before Kalego made his dramatic entrance. Kalego introduced himself as their class advisor, and also the one in charge of the summoning ritual before getting in Iruma's face, as he revealed his intentions of getting rid of him for all the ruckus he caused on the first day. Kalego then warned the students that he'd immediately expel anyone who fails, and while Iruma trembled in fear, the girls in class started simping hard for their teacher since girls hopelessly love bad boys. He then played a video which explained the steps which they needed to follow to summon their familiars, and destroyed it before it finished its lesson. When a student tried to ask a question, he shut her down immediately and revealed that a familiar who disobeyed its master would be subjected to the most brutal punishment imaginable. During the ritual, Kalego ordered them to line up in an orderly fashion, and Asmodeus offered to attack him for all the animosity he was showing towards Iruma, but Iruma turned him down immediately. A while later, a bunch of students summoned their familiars, and when Asmodeus performed the ritual, everyone watched in shock as a scary dragon-like creature called a Gorgon snake appeared as his familiar. Kalego wasn't surprised by this, since he knew Asmodeus's lineage was filled with overpowered freaks, and he wondered how Asmodeus lost to Iruma when he was at that level of power. When it was Iruma's turn to summon a familiar, the students watched in anticipation, and Iruma realized that he'd finally be free of the demon world if he got expelled after failing the ritual. Kalego got ticked off by the fact that Iruma was looking confident because it reminded him of Sullivan, who he despised for making a mockery of him in multiple situations. However, when Iruma performed the ritual, his human blood came in contact with Kalego's crest on the summoning paper, causing Kalego to be summoned as his familiar. Everyone couldn't believe their eyes, and when Kalego got stuck halfway in the magic circle, Iruma tried to help him out but ended up pushing his bottom half into the summoning circle, causing him to transform into a weird-looking bird which was now Iruma's familiar. When Kalego realized what had happened, he immediately fainted out of embarrassment, and all the students in the room started glazing Iruma for pulling off a feat that hadn't been done before. Asmodeus praised him for getting his revenge on the grumpy teacher in an embarrassing way, but Iruma said it was only an accident, and Kalego tried to threaten Iruma into nullifying the contact, but he immediately got struck by lightning because of the rule that forbade familiars from disobeying their masters. When Iruma and Kalego told Sullivan about their situation, he said they were bound together for a year and trying to nullify it before then would only unalive both of them. Hearing this, Kalego once again fainted in embarrassment, and afterwards, he became bedridden for the rest of the day while Iruma gained even more popularity at school for being the first demon to summon another demon as a familiar. As Iruma and Asmodeus walked to school the next day, all the students stared at Iruma like he was Michael Jackson, and they got to a spot where Asmodeus scared the living hell out of a bunch of students using his familiar just to clear a path for Iruma. Just then, a weird girl named Clara came flying out of one of the rooms, and when Iruma tried to talk to her, Asmodeus stopped him. She suddenly started pestering Iruma with questions, leaving him speechless as she went back to play with some boxes she had stacked in the area. While she was stacking boxes, Asmodeus explained to Iruma that Clara had a reputation for being an eccentric menace, the kind of clingy oddball everyone at school tried to avoid. Just then, one of the teachers showed up and tied all three of them up together before levitating them outside along with their lunchboxes. In the schoolyard, Clara brought out a bunch of weird equipment she had and asked Iruma and Asmodeus if they wanted to play with them. Asmodeus told Iruma they needed to run away, but then Clara showed Iruma a tree drawing she made and begged him to stay. Once again, Iruma proved to be a sucker for a puppy face as he acted as a dog in a tree for her, and afterwards, she asked Asmodeus to play a role in her silly drama, but he instantly declined. However, when Iruma told him to join in, he instantly folded and started role-playing with them. They spent the next couple of hours reimagining every filler scene from Naruto together, and their playtime eventually led Iruma to a room that was sealed with more locks than Area 51, making him wonder what was in the room. After playing some Kuroko no football with Clara, Iruma and Asmodeus were exhausted, so she pulled out some snacks for them from a weird pouch she was wearing. When Iruma asked what the pouch was, she said it was her family's special ability, which allowed her to make anything she'd seen before appear. Just then, a student named Yoki showed up along with his two doofus friends, and when he called out to Clara, she immediately rushed to play with him. Yoki patted her on the head while asking her if she had some new owners, and this question left Iruma confused. He then asked her for some juice, so Clara created some using her pouch and gave Yoki and his friends, who laughed at her as they walked away. After they left, Iruma asked Clara who they were, and the egghead told him about how she always gave them stuff when they asked, and also how they made her do the most embarrassing things because she was too much of an idiot to turn them down. She then claimed that Iruma and Asmodeus were the first people to actually play with her and asked Iruma to play with her again sometime. Iruma immediately agreed, but when she suggested doing some more role-playing with them, Iruma said they'd done enough horsing around for the day. The next morning at school, Clara summoned another batch of weird items from her pouch during playtime, and after playing around with Iruma and Asmodeus for a bit, she gave them some snacks which she manifested from her pouch as well. A while later, Clara was walking through the hall when she overheard Yoki and his buddies talking about how stupidly gullible she was, and how Iruma would soon dump her when he grew tired of her. As she listened, she said in a low tone that she already knew that, and afterwards she walked back to the playground where she jump-scared Iruma. She then created a bunch of snacks and toys from her pouch while asking Iruma to play with her again, but Iruma said he didn't want them. Before Iruma could say more, Clara started crying while talking about how everyone got tired of her and wouldn't play with her anymore. Iruma tried to explain, but she refused to listen as she continued talking about how she was so stupid that she had to give people stuff so they'd play with her. So Iruma stopped by grabbing her hand and telling her that he wanted to play with her even without those things. His words left Clara speechless, and he went even further to say that he had a lot of fun playing with her. He continued his power of friendship speech by telling her that he liked the fact that she always went overboard, and then he asked her if she'd play with him again. This made Clara's face turn red and she randomly started jumping around like a monkey as she cheerfully said it was the first time anyone's ever said those words to her. Just then, Yoki showed up to ask for some drink again, and Iruma tried to stop her from going to them, but she told him with a devious smile to see what she was about to do. She then smashed Yoki into the ground using a vending machine she created, and told him that he could get all the drinks he wanted from it if he paid. Some hours later, Asmodeus arrived and told Iruma that successfully told Yoki and his gang to stop bothering Clara, but Iruma noticed some burn marks on his outfit which showed that he did a lot more than just talking. When Iruma walked out of his house the next morning, he saw that Clara and Asmodeus were waiting for him by his gate, and Sullivan said he was pleased by the fact that he'd made some new friends. However, Iruma said he wasn't sure they were friends because he didn't know how they really felt about him, and then he wondered if it was okay for demons and humans to be friends. On their way to school, Asmodeus suggested they head to the cafeteria, since they didn't have any concrete plans for the day, and Iruma was nervous because before now, he'd been a loser who was incapable of making friends. When they got to the cafeteria, they stared at the enormous menu, and when Iruma asked about some crests assigned to each row of food, Asmodeus explained that the food they could order at Babel's depended on their rank. When Iruma and the gang sat for their meal, their table got suddenly flooded with all kinds of food, and when Asmodeus asked the servants about it, they revealed that it was a bunch of creepy-looking students who ordered 50 servings for them. Asmodeus was add the dumb pranksters to the restaurant menu, but before he could ask Iruma for permission, the blue-haired dummy had already eaten everything on their table. After a couple of more orders from Iruma, the chef collapsed from exhaustion, and just then, a staff member who worked at the bookstore dragged Clara out and explained that her ability to replicate things she'd seen was equivalent to stealing. Kalego then walked into the room and started scolding everyone until he ran into Iruma. He warned Iruma not to get a big head because he managed to tame him, and then Clara started pestering him with questions about their master-servant relationship. While holding on to Kalego, she gave Iruma some instructions, and when he followed them, Kalego transformed into his bird form, causing her to make fun of him. Before Iruma could undo the spell, they were chased out by the storekeeper for shoplifting, and when they got outside, the Egghead trio shared some ice cream while expressing their desire to be in the same class with each other. Iruma then asked them if he could call them friends, and when they acted like chicken brains, he realized that they had no idea what friends were. After he explained the concept of friends to them, they fought over who was Iruma's best friend, and Iruma hoped that things stayed cheerful between them as they progressed. Meanwhile, Sullivan was having a faculty meeting with the teachers at Babel's, and he decided that Iruma, Clara, and Asmodeus would be placed in a misfit class for problem children. The next morning, after devouring a breakfast huge enough to make Luffy embarrassed, Sullivan cheerfully informed Iruma that he'd enrolled him in a special class, supposedly to help him live out his dream of staying a low-key background character. When they heard Clara and Asmodeus waiting for him by the gate, Sullivan revealed that he also put them in the Misfit class, and Iruma wondered what the Misfits class actually was. On their way to school, Iruma shared the good news with his friends and also told them that the Misfits class they were put in was a class filled with lots of troublemakers. Asmodeus said he was alright so long as they were in the same class, and then he asked Iruma why he always walked to school instead of flying. In response, Iruma asked if Asmodeus and Clara could fly, and Asmodeus replied that all demons could fly before guessing that Iruma was just trying to work out his legs. Some minutes later, the students were staring at their assigned classes on the notice board, and while Clara celebrated the fact that she was in the same class as her buddies, Iruma got upset over the fact that the Misfit class list was made too flashy. Afterwards, they went to a building called the First Year Tower, and as they walked through the hallway, they saw a weird glowing arrow which Asmodeus said was meant to guide the honor student Iruma to his class. As they followed the arrow, Iruma noticed that the school seemed very much like a normal school, and he started to look forward to the experience because his parents in the human world never bothered to send him to a school. The arrow led them outside the building and into an underground cave which had a bunch of smelly Fortnite players in trash bags by the stairway. They eventually arrived at a door which had several warning signs, and when Iruma opened it, a swarm of deadly traps started blasting weapons at him. Iruma dodged all the attacks thanks to his overwhelming crisis evasion capability, and this made all the students in class sing praises to him. When some of them started talking about their gambling earnings, Asmodeus asked what they were doing, and they explained that they'd staked a bet on how many weapons would hit Iruma. They said he was the first student who dodged all of them, and then mentioned that another student managed to catch all the weapons. Just then, the weapon catcher they spoke of showed up and introduced himself as Sabnok, before claiming that his Goku body shape made him the perfect fit to become Demon King. He then said that he become something called a Yode before becoming Demon King, and when Iruma asked what a Yode was, he revealed that it was the strongest demon rank. He continued boldly yapping about how he was going to become the Demon King and shattered a sword while stating that he hated anyone who ranked above him. A student then revealed that he was sent to Misfits class because he challenged a teacher to a battle, and he explained that he thought challenging a teacher was the best way to climb through the ranks. Sabnok then brought up the fact that Iruma didn't know what a Yodi was while questioning his identity as a demon, but Asmodeus told him to cut it out to prove his superiority. Sabnok brought up the fact that Asmodeus summoned a Gorgon snake as a familiar and revealed that he summoned a creature named a Kelbi, which was a much larger dragon creature. He then said Asmodeus was no longer fit to be his rival since he became Iruma's slave, but Asmodeus argued that he was Iruma's friend and not his slave. Everyone in class wondered what a friend was, so in the spirit of corniness, Asmodeus explained the concept of friendship to them in a dramatic manner. Kalego then showed up in his usual grumpy mood, and he stopped all of the traps with magic while telling all of them to shut their mouths. When Clara asked if he was their teacher, Kalego said he was assigned there because Iruma and friends unknowingly framed him for shoplifting the previous day. He then did a roll call and told everyone to head outside the class so that he could determine their ranks. While they were outside, he revealed that their first lesson was to race to the flag at the end of the valley and explained that their ranks would be determined by the familiar summoning exam, which they did along with that race. He then revealed that their goal was to get a flag that sat atop a hill which was covered in moss beyond that valley, and this left Iruma stunned. He then turned on a screen which explained the course to them, and Asmodeus noticed that a path known as the Cutthroat Valley was shorter but more dangerous than the other ones. Kalego then destroyed the screen, and Sabnok was determined to follow the Cutthroat Valley, but Kalego said that the only acceptable course for them to go through was Warbling Valley. When Sabnok asked why, he said it was because the Guardian of Cutthroat Valley had been moody lately. Iruma then asked what the Guardian of Cutthroat Valley was, and Kalego explained that it was an enormous magical beast that ruled over the valley before stating that he couldn't guarantee the safety of anyone who followed that path. When the race began, all the students took off with their wings, leaving Iruma in the dust, and Kalego expressed all the bitter hatred he carries around effortlessly by pushing a wingless Iruma off the cliff. Afterwards, he watched them through a screen, and when he saw Kamui unsuccessfully trying to riz up Elizabetta, he switched to the next beat edge. He saw Jazz, Gomon, and Schneider get swarmed by birds after trying to steal their eggs. When he switched to the next feed, he saw Asmodeus zooming through the course and using his Gorgon snake to roast a bunch of deadly plants that attacked him. Just then, Asmodeus noticed that Clara was on his back, and he was stunned when he saw Sabnok flying towards Cutthroat Valley. Sabnok flew through the deadly winds of Cutthroat Valley, determined to slay the Guardian of the Valley and become Demon Lord, and Kalego, who was watching behind the screen, wrote him off as a dead man. Kalego then tried to search for Iruma through the monitor, but he couldn't find him because Iruma was being carried by a crow on a lower part of the valley. Iruma resigned himself to his fate of being crow food, and suddenly the crow dumped him into the air before flying away. Meanwhile, Asmodeus saved Clara from some dangerous plants and started to wonder where Iruma was. He eventually guessed that Iruma chose to go through Cutthroat Valley with Sabnok, but Iruma was actually dumped in front of a giant bird creature which he noticed was injured. To calm the creature down, Iruma demonstrated how he intended to patch it up, and just when he was about to cover up the monster's injury, his blood fell into the injury, causing it to heal completely. This made him realize that human blood had the power to heal demons, which made them very valuable, and just then, the monster dumped Iruma in its back and flew away with him. Meanwhile, Sabnok was getting ragdolled by the Guardian of Cutthroat Valley, and he realized that this might just be the end of the road for him. As the bird monster soared through the air, Iruma panicked at its ridiculous speed and started wondering if it planned to just drop him straight at the finish line. However, he saw some danger signs in the area that made him start panicking as he realized that that bird could actually have been paid to unalive him. Meanwhile, the guardian of Cutthroat Valley whooped Sabnock so hard that he started to consider starting a farm instead of being Demon Lord, but he activated his bloodline ability, weapon creation, by biting the gold plate on the necklace he was wearing, and this summoned a giant golden axe which he used in charging at the monster. When Sabnock was younger, he found a demon scroll and his elder brother told him it was his destiny to become the Demon King. Sabnock also remembered his promise to his sick younger sister to become the Demon King no matter what, and this gave him the motivation he needed to slash the monster in the head. He then stated that the reason he wanted to be the Demon King wasn't because of anything he promised his siblings but because it was the coolest thing in the world. He went off about his dream to ascend beyond mortal limits and become the final boss of masculinity before biting the silver plate on his necklace to summon a silver sword which he used in attacking the monster again. He ripped off all of Asta's moves but the monster knocked off his sword and sent him flying again. On the floor, he remembered how he used to watch his brother welding his weapons and he said he refused to become a lame demon like him who never strives to be anything better. Sabnock then got back up and said he'd see his will through to the end, and right when the Guardian was about to deliver the final blow, Iruma appeared in front of him. When the Guardian halted its attack, Iruma and Sabnock were stunned. But then they saw that the bird creature Iruma befriended was explaining some things to the Guardian. When Sabnock asked what Iruma was doing there, Iruma said he jumped off the bird monster he was riding in order to save him. They realized that the bird creature was the child of the Guardian of Cutthroat Valley, and Iruma told the Guardian that everything was okay because his child's foot was now healed. When Sabnock tried to attack the bird creatures again, Iruma told him to put down his weapon, and when the Guardian saw that they were unarmed, it bowed in appreciation to Iruma. Meanwhile, Asmodeus and Clara arrived at the destination, and when Asmodeus asked for Iruma, Kalego told him that he was the first one to arrive at the goal while Clara was the second. Hours later, all of the students reached the goal with the exception of Iruma and Sabnock, and Kalego crossed off Iruma's name from the list based on the assumption that he was dead meat. Kalego wanted to start announcing the ranks, but Asmodeus stopped him by reminding him that Iruma hadn't arrived yet. Kalego replied that people who didn't return would be abandoned, and just then, they saw the Guardian of Cutthroat Valley approaching them. Kalego told them to stand back while he fought it off using magic, but then they saw Iruma riding on top of it alongside Sabnock, and this left everyone speechless. After the Guardian left, Kalego sent Iruma and Sabnock to do some reflection, and then he summoned something called a rank owl, which had been examining their every move. He told the students to put their hand in its tummy to collect something called a ranking badge, before saying that Iruma and Sabnock, who came last, would be the last to pick their badges. Sabnock started getting angered by the punishment he was given, so Iruma calmed him down by reminding him that they would have been expelled if things went worse. Sabnock then brought up the fact that he couldn't have made it on his own, and thanked Iruma for helping him before apologizing for his rudeness earlier. He then claimed that Iruma was his rival for the Demon Lord's throne starting that day, and Kalego interrupted their talk by telling them to go to the back of the line. When Asmodeus picked his badge, all the students in the area were stunned to see that he was at a mid-class rank named Dalit, which was a rank that many of their seniors weren't close to achieving yet. The other students picked up their badges as well, and when Asmodeus saw that Clara was at the rank directly below his, which was named Gimmel, he started to question how an egghead like her managed to achieve such a rank, causing Kalego to explain that luck was also a skill. When Sabnock picked up his badge, everyone was shocked that he ended up in the second lowest rank named Bet, and they guessed that it was because he took last place in the race they just had. However, Sabnock wasn't disturbed by this low rank because he only saw it as fuel for his dream of climbing the ranks in order to become the Demon King. Iruma was the last one to the rank owl, and everyone watched in anticipation as Iruma picked up his rank. Kalego then started telling Lead and Jazz that there was no way Iruma could sway the rank owl since it was solemn and true. Just when he stated that the owl hadn't made a sound in over a century, the owl screamed like it had stubbed its small toe and flew away, leaving Iruma without a badge. The students then noticed that there was a ring on Iruma's hand, which was emitting an ominous aura, and when Sabnock saw it, he remembered his brother telling him that the next Demon King would descend from a foreign land and have a golden ring of Solomon on his right hand. Iruma tried to pull off the ring, but it wouldn't come off, and when he tried to get some help from his peers, they all jumped away before he realized that there was a shadow monster sticking out of the ring. The shadow monster then let out a scream which was so loud that it had everyone in the school clutching their ears, and when Led noticed that Iruma wasn't affected by the scream, he told him to stop the monster. Iruma tried petting it, and Clara supported him by singing it a lullaby which the monster ended up enjoying. When Sabnock tried to stop it, it took him down with a single touch, and Asmodeus tried to help out, but he had his magic drained in the same way. When Kalego tried to take a closer look at it, he saw a vision where his hand was ripped apart and he realized that the monster was threatening him. So he decided that the monster needed to be dealt with immediately. However, before he could stop the monster, Sullivan made a surprise appearance by stopping him, and then he easily sent the shadow monster back into the ring before revealing that Iruma's ring was called the Gluttonous Feeder Ring. He said it could store the user's magical powers, adding that it would eat anyone's magic powers when it becomes empty. He also revealed that the ring couldn't come off no matter what, before whispering to Iruma that it happened because he was human. Much later, Iruma was pleased to see that he was given the lowest rank, Aleph. But Asmodeus was annoyed because he knew he only got that low rank because it wasn't properly measured. Sometime later, Ameri flipped through newspaper articles covering the Misfit class's recent escapades, and one student in particular, Iruma, caught her attention. Meanwhile, Sullivan rode off in a carriage, and he was happy about the fact that he'd finally received the custom carriage he ordered to take Iruma to and from school. He sang gleefully as he sped through the streets, and Iruma was annoyed by the fact that he was standing out on his way to school. When he asked Iruma how the ride to school was so far, Iruma said it was fine, but then he noticed the ring on his finger and felt that the magic it ate from Sullivan would be enough to keep the monster at bay for a while. When Iruma saw a bunch of demons talking about how much they loved to eat humans, Iruma decided that he'd stay out of sight. But when they arrived at school, Opera rolled out a red carpet as he announced Iruma's arrival. Just then, Asmodeus arrived and started glazing Iruma like usual until he got bonked in the face by a rolled carpet which had Clara riding in it. When Asmodeus and Clara started fighting, Sullivan handed Iruma his bag as well as a phone he got so that Iruma could reach him. However, Iruma vanished from the old hairbag's sight because he couldn't bear to be embarrassed any further. During class, Kalego did the roll call, and afterwards he informed Iruma that he'd begin classes with other teachers starting that day before warning him to avoid insolent behavior such as not answering his name when he gets called. Kalego then side-eyed Savnok as he also said they should avoid foolish actions such as challenging their teachers to duels, and then he told everyone to head towards the class tower. Afterwards, Iruma and his classmates attended several lectures with different teachers, and they eventually went to the botany tower, where the teacher named Susie announced that they'd be learning about something called diabotany. She then told them that they'd be using magic to make flowers bloom, and did a demonstration by saying a spell to a little sprout that made it grow into a beautiful flower. Afterwards, she explained that they could use that flower to give shape to their magic and told everyone to begin the experiment. Pichiro and Kamui tried to make their plants grow, but nothing happened, so Susie explained that they needed to envision what they wanted the flower to look like in their mind before saying the spell. Iruma knew he couldn't produce a flower since he didn't have any magic, but he decided to take the lesson seriously so that he doesn't stand out. Iruma then saw some fish brains in the area staring at him, and Asmodeus revealed that they were upperclassmen who came to check on them because their ranks were just announced. They also noticed some student council members in the area, and they started to wonder what they were before the narcissistic idiot Savnok boldly claimed that they were there to see him because he was throwing future demon lord. Savnok then used the spell on the plant, and it created a little monstrous flower that started eating the flower pot, and Susie gave him a B+ for his efforts. However, Asmodeus called all of their attention to the burning flower he created, and Susie gave him an A+, causing him to start bragging about how he was smoother with flames than Firelord Ozai. Savnok shut him up by dumping some water on his flower, and in response, Asmodeus threw a flame attack at him. When Savnok dodged the attack, the two of them started locking guard with each other until Susie created some huge magic roots that held both of them while telling them to save their worthless match for after the class. She then said it was time to take a look at the other flowers, and Jazz created a flower that had a bunch of treasures on them, while Led created a flower with a roulette on its petal. Kamui created a flower that was so sus that it had to be censored, while Schneider manifested a flower that had a scroll at the center of it. Gaemon managed to create a flower version of Avatar Aang, while Elizabetta made a flower that was so charming that the guys started salivating over it. Hirori created a beautiful blue flower, while Pikaro's flower manifested as a huge foam cloud which he slept on. Iruma was impressed by all of their creations, but when he checked Clara's flower, he saw that it looked so deformed that it could have starred in a Junji Ito manga, and everyone started bonding over how badly it looked. Iruma envisioned a warm cherry blossom tree as he applied his magic to the plant, and although he expected nothing to happen, his ring suddenly activated, causing the plant to emit a blue light that covered the entire room. When Iruma called Sullivan to ask him about it, Sullivan said Iruma could now use magic because of the magic he previously stored in the ring, but he warned Iruma not to use it because he hadn't adjusted the output. Just then, the plant grew out into a massive tree that destroyed the roof of the building, and when Sullivan looked out the window, he saw a giant cherry blossom tree which covered the area. One of the student council members went to report the issue to Ameri, and Ameri told him that the cherry blossom tree only existed in the human world before revealing her intention to have a serious talk with Iruma. Some hours later, Ameri took down a bunch of ugly delinquents that were causing chaos in the school hallway, and as she walked away, her associates started talking about how they believed humans were only a superstition, but Ameri knew that humans existed. In fact, she had a theory that Iruma was a human, and when she returned to her office, she opened a secret passage which had some forbidden text that had recordings of the ongoings of the human world. When she opened one of the books, she saw that it was a cringe romance manga named First Love Memories, and she immediately started fangirling over it since girls are into that crap. She realized that the main characters were in love, and she couldn't stop herself from reading it further. After reading the manga for the next few hours, she ran out of the student council room. Meanwhile, some school janitors successfully gaslighted Iruma into agreeing to do cleanup for them, but just as he was about to start, Asmodeus burned down the heap of trash bags for him. Just then, Clara also showed up with some garbage and she tripped on a rock, causing the garbage to spill on them. Asmodeus then yelled at her to go home, and Iruma told him to go home as well while he put away the cleaning tools. On his way to store the cleaning tools, he collided with Ameri by the hallway, and when he extended his hand to pick her up, she remembered a similar scene from her manga, causing her heart to start beating uncontrollably. She then asked Iruma for his name, and when he told her, she grabbed his face and came to the conclusion that he was definitely a human. As Iruma stared at her furious expression, he couldn't help but question what kind of trouble he'd landed in. While Ameri took a deep breath, reminding herself that if anyone discovered a human in the netherworld, chaos would explode faster than a gossip spell. She then decided that she'd contact her father, who was the head of the demon security police, so that Iruma would be arrested and sent to a proper facility because she felt it was her responsibility as the student council president to purge anything that bothered the peace of the school. Iruma thought she was really mad about the fact that he bumped into her, so he tried to apologize, but she cut him off before he could do so because her head's filled with nothing but romance novels, and she thought he was trying to rizz her up like the boy in her manga. She saw him as a dangerous person and decided that she wouldn't miss a single move he made, so when he bowed down to apologize, she copied his movement. This created an awkward situation between them, and Ameri's mind was still in the gutter as she thought he was trying to hold her hands to make her fall in love with him. Just then, Ameri's manga fell from her pocket, and Iruma immediately picked it up and started checking it out. He expressed how much he loved that manga, but he knew that he was actually an assistant on that manga while he was in the human world. Ameri was about to bluntly call him out for being a human, but then he read out a scene from the manga, and Ameri was stunned by the fact that he could understand the words from her so-called forbidden texts. Iruma then asked how she got a copy of the manga, and he was about to blow his cover with another dumb question before Ameri interrupted him by asking him to read out some of the manga's dialogue for her. After he read it, she dragged him to her office, and Iruma thought she was about to rip off his jewel stones, but when they got there, she set up a tea party and told him to read the manga out loud for her. Iruma realized that she was asking him to do so because demons couldn't read human language, but he felt that reading it would expose his humanity to her. However, Iruma couldn't say no to a request even to protect his own secret, so when Ameri asked him to read it, he immediately obliged. He read up to a point where the main boy asked the main girl out on a date, causing Ameri to ask him what a date was. After explaining what a date was to her, Iruma continued his reading, and Ameri had the time of her life while listening to him until they got to the end of the volume. Iruma then noticed how dark it was outside, and also that he'd received about 1 million missed calls from Grandpa Sullivan. Ameri suddenly grabbed his phone and put her number in it before telling him to come by her office whenever she summons him. She added that she should come alone without telling anyone, and then she finally introduced herself to him. As Iruma walked home, he was confused by the experience he just had with Ameri, but he realized that he had a lot of fun during the manga reading. Meanwhile, Ameri was now certain about the fact that he was a human, but her brain had become rotten from all the romance novels she's read that she decided not to take action until after they finished reading all the volumes of First Love Memories. Later that night, Iruma got a text from Asmodeus informing him that the student council president wanted to talk to him, and he wondered if he was in trouble because he had no idea that the prez was actually his otaku buddy Ameri. The next morning, Iruma told Opera not to bring out the carriage to take him to school, and Opera suddenly asked if he'd like to return to the human world. Iruma was about to give a positive response until he remembered the garbage life he was living in the human world, which was nothing in comparison to the sweet lifestyle he had in the demon world. This put Iruma in a state of mental crisis as he wondered if he actually wanted to go back to the human world, and Opera then revealed that it would be possible for him to return to the human world if he graduates with a high rank. He then advised Iruma to strengthen his resolve before telling him that Sullivan was bringing out the carriage for him, causing him to run faster than Bullet Train to meet his friends. In school, Iruma still couldn't decide whether or not he'd like to return to the human world, and Ameri started brainstorming about the right way to summon Iruma to see her. She remembered a scene from First Love Memories where the girl named Rin politely invited the guy named Kakaru to see her after school. She typed a similar text but decided to delete it because of how embarrassing it sounded. Meanwhile, Iruma was having lunch while thinking about Opera's words to him, and he realized that graduating with a higher grade would only bring more attention to him. Just then, Asmodeus and Clara came by to check on him, but he couldn't stick around with them because he got a text from his manga mommy inviting him to come see her. After he left, Asmodeus told Sabnok about how Iruma had been wandering off in secret recently, and he advised them to follow him, so they immediately started searching for him. In the student council room, the student council members were discussing some important matters, but Ameri couldn't focus at all, and she ended up dismissing them early so that she could go hang out with her man. Meanwhile, Asmodeus and Clara bought a pair of demon warding glasses from the school store, and these glasses had the ability to make anyone wearing them completely unnoticeable. Amari eventually met up with Iruma by the hallway, and Asmodeus and Clara, who watched from the corner, were stunned by what they were seeing. Asmodeus started making up dumb stories about how Iruma was trying to gain control over the student council, and he went into tears as he started glazing him. A while later, Iruma started reading the 5th volume of First Love Memories to Ameri, and it got to a point where the characters were talking about dreams, so Iruma asked Ameri if she had any dreams for the future. Amari said she wanted to be a very proud demon and added that she wanted others to be proud of that fact, that they were demons as well, which was why she wanted to improve the nature of students at the school. She then revealed that she'd be helping with her father's work after she graduates, and Iruma said she was amazing, but then she asked him for his dreams. Iruma said he was content with just having fun with everyone, but she said that was only his ideals and claimed that she wanted to hear his ambitions. She specified that she wanted to hear his desire and then asked the question once again, while Asmodeus and Clara, who watched by the window, started goofing off together. When Clara mentioned wanting to enter the room, Asmodeus stopped her, insisting they wait until they figured out what Iruma was up to. However, he was bothered by the fact that he wasn't hearing what Iruma and the president were saying, but he decided to keep eavesdropping anyway. Meanwhile, Ameri's question made Iruma's last viable brain cell to finally resign, and Asmodeus managed to stop Clara from bursting into the room by using his body as a shield. Asmodeus then said he wouldn't let her interfere because he was sure that Iruma was doing something super important that even they couldn't comprehend. Inside the room, when Ameri came to check on Iruma, he told her that all this time he'd only ever thought about what others wanted from him and not what he wanted to do. Amari then asked him to come up with an ambition for himself, and outside the room, Asmodeus was pulling off all his best moves to stop Clara from getting past him. Iruma racked his brain for several minutes but couldn't think of anything, so Ameri told him to climb through the ranks and advised him to start up by becoming a bat rank. Suddenly, the door shattered, and Asmodeus apologized to them before explaining that Clara had gone full WWE and body slammed her way through. Ameri immediately hid the manga, and Clara dragged Iruma out of the room. While they were outside, Amari told Iruma that she'd be waiting for him to stand by her side when he climbed the ranks, and this made him speechless. That night, Iruma was on the bed thinking about how climbing the ranks would mean standing out, and then he realized that there was no point for him to climb through ranks since he was a human. The next day, Clara was chilling on top of Sabnok's shoulders, and she asked him how she could get Iruma back from the clutches of the red-haired witch. Sabnok said she needed to charm him with her feminine wiles, and then quoted a page from a book on how to become a demon king that said, "If something gets taken from you, you should take it back by using charms to wrap them around your finger." During class, Iruma looked through the options for elective courses, and he ended up picking classroom lectures because it was the one where he didn't have to stand out. When he explained his reason, Asmodeus decided to go with the same option. However, when they checked Clara's form, they saw that she chose a seduction class, and this stunned everyone because they knew the S-grade baddie in charge of that class named Rame knew all the ways to make girls hot enough to make men fall to their knees. When Asmodeus asked what she was plotting, she bickered with him for a bit before telling Iruma that she'd make him fall head over heels for her. On the day of the seduction class, Rame introduced herself to the students before telling them that succubi could change their appearance to fit the preferences of their prey. She then said that the most important thing was to make the men fall for them using the techniques she was about to show them. Just then, they noticed Kamui in their class, so Rame threw him out in a bundle before using a succubus technique that allowed her to measure the hotness of her students. When she measured Elisabetta, she was impressed to see that she was at 89%, which made her an A, and when she checked Karori, the rating she saw was 51%, which which made her a B. When Karori started feeling bad, Raim said it was okay because the lowest she'd ever seen was 21%. But when she checked Clara, she was astounded by the fact that the airhead girl had only 2%. She then gave Clara a bunch of special textbooks and said she had to read them by force. Sometime later, Clara checked one of the textbooks and the first lesson there was about posing. When she spotted Iruma walking by the hallway, she tried to follow the instructions she read about posing, but she ended up looking like she was mid-Wi-Fi reboot, leaving Iruma convinced she desperately needed a bathroom. The second step in the textbook was touching, and after reading out the instructions on how to give a seductive touch, she ended up just hugging Iruma from behind and playing a stupid game with him instead. The third step in the textbook was to wear something that would attract a man's attention, so of course she wore a weird monster costume that only ticked Asmodeus off so much that he dragged her away. The fourth step in the book was to change your image using perfume, so she dumped an entire bucket of perfume on herself, causing her to transform into something that looked and smelled horrible. Following the fifth step, she attempted to put on some makeup but ended up painting her face like a clown, and all the boys in class laughed at her for it. When Clara got home, her family members noticed that she was feeling down, so they fed her with so much positivity that she returned to her usual cheerful state, and she ended up doing a playful musical performance with them. That evening, she decided that the next step was to kiss Iruma, and she practiced by kissing her doll. In school that day, Clara did a combo of all the disastrous seduction steps she'd taken so far, and when she tried to kiss Iruma, he dodged using his evasion ability, causing her kiss to land in Kalego's stomach. Afterwards, Kalego punished her by making her write 1,000,000 words on the chalkboard. A while later, she met up with Raim, who told her that she wasn't cut out for seduction before showing her a special perfume that could make any man fall for her. However, Clara claimed that she didn't want it and walked away. A few hours later, Clara sat by the school garden and she started feeling bad about her lack of appeal before Iruma arrived. Iruma said it was dangerous for a girl to be out there alone, and she got so excited about the fact that he called her a girl that she started playfully teasing him. With a warm smile, she told him she'd make him fall for her again, and this weirdly made Iruma's heart skip a beat. As she ran along with him, Raim was amazed to see that her hotness rate had gone up to 10%. The next morning, Iruma met up with Asmodeus by the dining hall and told him that he wanted to go up a rank. Iruma explained that for now, his goal was to climb from Aleph to Bet, then asked Asmodeus to teach him how to level up his rank. Asmodeus suddenly went into tears because all this time he thought that Iruma had no interest in ranks, and he remembered the fact that Iruma's rank was deemed immeasurable after he made the Guardian of Cutthroat Valley his pet. He knew that Iruma couldn't be measured on the same scale as regular demons, but felt that it was wrong for the idiots in charge to put him at the lowest rank on the board. He then told Iruma that he as well was displeased when Iruma was ranked Aleph, and told Iruma that they needed to get started in their new rank upgrade mission at once. Asmodeus then loudly declared that Iruma would become a Yod and rule over the demon realm, causing everyone in the building to lose their minds. However, Iruma said he was fine with just moving up to Bet rank, and Simp King Asmodeus presumed that he was Batman-level master plan to take over the school, so he apologized for not seeing the bigger picture. Asmodeus then announced to the crowd that Iruma was going to prepare to rise up to the rank of Bet, and Iruma's admirer, named Aiko, worried that him moving would mean they wouldn't be in the same rank anymore. Hours later, Asmodeus took Iruma and Clara to the underground gym of Babbles, and Clara immediately started playing around. Asmodeus then revealed that the one way for Iruma to upgrade his ranks was to get good grades on the periodic rank promotion exams which they had in class, and said the next promotion exams was in 1 week. He revealed that during the exam, they'd be tested on something called Execution Cannonball. When Iruma asked what it was, he explained that Execution Cannonball was once a test used to quell a sudden outbreak of demons fighting over territories, and during the event, they'd use weapons called caimans which had enormous teeth that allowed them to rip their targets apart. He then stated that the first to enter the enemy's castle and eliminate everyone inside would be declared the winner, and Iruma felt terrified by this event. Asmodeus then said that due to the number of casualties, the school now used some special dodgeballs instead of caimans, and added that those who got hit with the ball would be out of the game. He also said that those sent off the field could come back in as soon as they hit an enemy with the ball, and then he asked Clara to create some cursed puppets they could play with. When she created the cursed puppets, they spent the next couple of hours practicing, and Iruma eventually figured out that the game was basically dodgeball. He started to feel confident about his chances of passing, but suddenly, a supercharged ball came flying past his face and into the wall opposite him. When he looked back, he saw that Savnok had come to join the fun, and it didn't take long before the rest of Misfits class showed up to play with them as well. Savnok then threw a powerful shot at Gomon, but Gomon used a wind slash to split the ball in two, causing one of the halves to fly towards Karori while the other flew towards towards Pichiro. Kirori copied one of Sub-Zero's ice tricks in order to block her half of the ball while Pichiro blocked his half using earthbending magic. Savnok then fired a barrage of supercharged shots and the whole game got so chaotic that Iruma started to give up on his goal to climb the ranks. Asmodeus then told him he needed to train more and then suggested he discuss the matter with Sullivan. When Iruma arrived at Sullivan's office, Sullivan used a surprisingly serious tone as he asked Iruma to tell him about the training he wanted, and in class, Kalego was annoyed by the fact that all the misfits weren't in class. During Iruma's training, Sullivan asked him to aim his dodgeball at a giant rock that was in front of him, and then gave him some extra instructions on how to position his body. Iruma felt like it was just normal dodgeball, but just when he was about to throw the ball, Sullivan asked him to say the word Libera, and when he did, his ring created a dragon-like aura that destroyed the rock. Sullivan claimed his training was over since he could now clap his classmates easily, but Iruma said using Sullivan's power felt like cheating. Iruma then said he wanted to do it on his own, without using magic, and Sullivan replied that it would be hard for him if he tried that. Sullivan then applied some magic to Iruma's hands while explaining that he was strengthening Iruma's hands so that he'd be able to catch the shots of magic users, thereby enabling him to have a fair match. Afterwards, Sullivan said he was leaving, and before he left he put Opera in charge of Iruma's dodgeball training. When the training began, Opera started launching dodgeballs at Iruma, and when Iruma managed to dodge all of them, he praised Iruma's evasion skills before saying that he couldn't just evade if he wanted to increase his rank. He then told Iruma to try catching that ball before continuing a barrage of dodgeball throws, and by the time they were done, Iruma's soul was already drained. Later that evening, Iruma was seated on his bed and he got a bunch of texts from Asmodeus and Clara which motivated him to keep pushing forward, and he decided to give Ameri an update as well. The next day, Asmodeus and Clara watched as Opera resumed his training with Iruma, and Opera explained that the ball would stop when it was aimed at Iruma's face, allowing him to catch it. However, Iruma still failed to catch the ball, so Opera told him to concentrate before launching a supercharged ball at him. Iruma still dodged the ball several times until a certain point where he managed to briefly touch the ball before it flew away. Meanwhile, Ameri was standing by her manga collection and she decided to put their reading on hold until Iruma was done with his training. At the same time, Iruma did some physical workouts while being focused on the idea of catching the ball, and afterwards, he started stuffing his face with a portion of food just enough for the colossal titan. When Asmodeus tried to hand him some water, he noticed that Iruma's hands were bruised all over, and Iruma explained that it was because the ball was now hitting his hand most of the time thanks to Opera's training. After eating, Iruma trained with his friends, and then went home to get some sleep. When Sullivan asked Opera how the training was going, Opera said he still hadn't caught a ball yet, but also told him that Iruma was having tons of fun every day. On the day before the promotional exam, Iruma locked in, and when Opera threw a shot at him, he managed to finally catch the ball. Later that evening, Iruma napped with his friends by a tree, and Opera told Sullivan that Iruma was ready for the exam. On the day of the promotion exam, Iruma devoured his usual king-size breakfast, and Opera offered some advice, reminding him that for demons, fear was the ultimate form of humiliation. He then told Iruma that he needed to get more upfront even while being scared by turning his fear into excitement. When Asmodeus and Clara came by to pick Iruma, he tied his hair back and prepared himself for the crazy journey ahead. At school, Kalego summoned a fun screen to explain the rules of the game, and when it was done, he slammed it into the ground and announced that their increase in rank would be determined by the team that wins the battle, as well as the ranks of the opponents they managed to hit. He then said they'd be split into an A team, which would wear yellow armbands, and a B team, which would wear red armbands. Asmodeus said some words of motivation to Iruma, but when they put on their armbands they realized that they were in separate teams. Iruma was in the A team, which consisted of Clara, Savnok, Pisaro, Elisabetta, Jazz, and a cursed doll, while Asmodeus belonged to Team B, which included Goemon, Karori, Schneider, Kamui, Soy, and Led. Noticing this, Asmodeus started yelling at Kalego for trying to ruin his friendship, but Kalego explained that he split it that way to ensure a balance in power. He then told them to line up, and Asmodeus decided to help Iruma from the enemy's camp, but he wondered how he would do so. When the game began, Lead advised his teammates not to throw the ball at Iruma because he was not only powerful enough to defeat Asmodeus, but also a master of evasion. Asmodeus wasn't part of this strategy meeting as he was lost in his own thoughts, and Savnok started provoking the B team into wasting their shots on him. Led said it would be a great idea to take the bait because Savnok was the same guy who got hit with all the traps in their class on the first day, and everyone agreed with that idea. However, Jazz suddenly swiped the ball away from them and passed it to Savnok. Karori created an ice wall to shield her teammates as Savnok hurled the ball at them, and the ball hit the ice before slightly bouncing on Karori. After Kalego announced that Karori was out, Kamui managed to catch the ball, but the King of Simp handed it to Elisabetta as a gift, causing Kalego to announce that he's out for crossing to the opponent's court. When it was time for them to resume the game, Clara created a bunch of balls using her pouch, and everyone was desperately searching for the real ball until Pichero randomly decided to destroy the court with his magic, causing the balls to fly into the air. When Jazz pointed out the real ball, Iruma caught it, causing everyone to praise his skills, and Kalego announced that Pizarro was being ejected from the court for using magic on something other than the ball. Iruma was pleased because the results of his training with Opera were showing, but when he tried to throw the ball, he realized that he was never taught how to do so. Everyone watched in anticipation as Iruma held the ball, but then Sabnok took the ball from him and said he'd be the one leading the attack. Sabnok was annoyed by the fact that Asmodeus was daydreaming in the middle of their match, so he launched the ball at him in an attempt to snap him back into reality. However, Asmodeus easily caught the ball with one hand before throwing it right into Sabnok's ugly face, causing Kalego to announce that the muscle head is out. Seeing this, the rest of Team A decided not to throw the ball at Asmodeus, who's still acting like the MC. But Clara didn't get the memo because she was so determined to avenge Sabnok that she threw the ball at Asmodeus, only to get knocked out in an embarrassing way. Afterwards, the match continued at a steady pace, and all the demons were eliminated from the court, one by one, until it was just Asmodeus and Iruma standing across from each other. Asmodeus freaked out when he realized this, and both teams started hyping up their surviving soldiers. The Flame Prince started to consider giving the ball to Iruma so that he could get an easy win, but when he saw that Iruma was in the zone, he changed his mind. He remembered how hard Iruma had worked during his training, and felt ashamed at himself for not considering Iruma's feelings this whole time. He then created a huge wave of fire around himself, and told Iruma that he'd give him everything he had. Iruma said he was determined to catch his shot, and as the student council members walked into the area, some of them guessed that Ameri was going there because she wanted to recruit Asmodeus to join the council, but she said she was there to see something more interesting. The entire class started hyping them up like it was a Mayweather vs McGregor rematch, and Jazz pointed out that it was their official rematch from the fight they had on the entrance day. Iruma noticed that Asmodeus had more malice in his magic power than before, and when prepared to throw the ball, Iruma ran forward to face him just like Opera advised him. Asmodeus then threw the ball at him with an immense amount of firepower backing it up, and Iruma struggled to hold on to it, so he spun up into the air and threw it right back at him. When the ball hit Asmodeus, Kalego announced that Team A won the duel and the entire group treated Iruma like a war hero. As Kalego watched, he realized that the shot Asmodeus used was so powerful that not many upperclassmen could even counter it, but Iruma managed to do so by using his bizarre evasion skill as an attack. He then handed Iruma a rank badge and said he'd never have upgraded his rank if Asmodeus had let him win, before officially announcing that Iruma had now moved up to bet rank. The rest of the classmates started debating that Iruma deserved a higher ranking for the amazing stunt he pulled, but Kalego said ranks didn't go up that easily and revealed that there would be no more exams moving forward, meaning the only way to level up was to work harder. Afterwards, Iruma couldn't stop smiling, and Ameri came by to compliment him. Iruma told her that he finally knew what working hard felt like, and she told him that the very thing he felt was ambition. When Iruma returned home that evening, he told Opera and Sullivan about his accomplishment before thanking Opera for his help. As he celebrated with Opera, Sullivan felt jealous but eventually realized that he didn't do anything to help Iruma during the training. That night, Iruma laid on his bed and started to relish in the excitement he was feeling, and when he remembered Opera asking him if he wanted to return to the human world, he fell asleep with a huge smile on his face. The next day, Iruma resumed reading First Love Memories to Amari, but midway through, his mind drifted to everything that had happened lately, leaving him wondering what awaited him next. Amari then asked him about the next events of the manga, so he continued his reading until they heard the school bell start going off. After Amari left for class, Iruma started thinking about his ambitions again, and he wondered if he should just keep leveling up like Rimuru. During class, a green-haired teacher named Robin showed up and introduced himself as the new teacher in charge of the subject of familiars. He explained that he missed the ceremony because he was too busy scrolling on TikTok, and then he confessed that his attention span was pretty messed up sometimes. Robin then announced that their first subject would be communicating with their familiars, and Iruma instantly realized that this subject would be a pain for him. He took them to the field and said they'd be doing some special bonding time with their familiars. He first called up Asmodeus, and Asmodeus summoned his Gorgon snake, which left Robin stunned. In an attempt not to be outdone, Sabnok summoned his Kelby, and Robin was absolutely thrilled by the sight of both their familiars. Asmodeus and Sabnok then had a face-off where they boasted about their familiars like two kids arguing over whose dad works at Nintendo, and soon Robin said it was Clara's turn to showcase her familiar. Clara then summoned a dinosaur-like creature called a Falfal, and Robin was impressed because he knew it was a rare familiar whose words and actions were a complete mystery. He wondered how she managed to tame it, but when he saw that it was treating her like its pet, he realized she hadn't tamed it at all. Following Following the Falthel's orders, she went to the school store to order a snack, and when she came back, they ate the snack together, which left Robin impressed by the fact that they could communicate without words. Robin then called Iruma up to summon his familiar, but Iruma told him that he'd die if he summoned his familiar. In response, Robin started pestering Iruma to show him his familiar, and since Iruma couldn't say no to a request, he agreed to summon him. Meanwhile, a teacher informed Kalego about a report they got from a student that he was too harsh on them, but Kalego's scary glance was enough to make him shut up. Kalego then started yapping about how it was a teacher's duty to treat students like trash when he suddenly vanished from the room. Kalego appeared in his bird form on the field and he instantly got ticked off, so Iruma apologized a million times to calm him down. When Robin started petting him, Kalego tried to bring the hammer on him but ended up accidentally tapping Iruma's hand, causing a stroke of lightning to electrocute him as punishment for defying his master. Kalego then started begging Iruma to undo the summoning spell, but Robin brought up Kalego's words in the teacher's guidelines which forbade them from allowing special exemptions during class. Elizabetta suggested telling Robin that the familiar was Kalego, but Led and the other guys said she shouldn't because they were having too much fun watching their teacher get embarrassed. A while later, Kalego told Iruma that he objected to being treated as his familiar, but then said it was against his policy to disrupt learning processes before telling Iruma to get only the highest scores possible during familiar classes. He then explained to Iruma that a summon from a master was absolute, and that the shape and form was also influenced by its master. Kalego then pointed out that the humiliating form he was in was because of Iruma, before revealing that the only time a familiar needed to obey its master was when it was summoned. Just then, Robin suggested a master familiar frisbee throwing session, and Iruma tried to decline, but when Robin said he had no choice but to reduce Iruma's score if he did, Iruma and Kalego agreed to do it. When Iruma threw the frisbee, Kalego reluctantly went to pick it up while the students mocked him, and when he handed it back to Iruma, Robin suggested a high five. When they did it, Robin made them do some other embarrassingly fun activities that left Kalego in shambles when they were done. Iruma then apologized to Kalego for all the trouble he caused him, and Kalego asked him why he didn't summon him when he was about to be attacked by the Guardian of Cutthroat Valley. Iruma said it was because he didn't want either him or the Guardian of Cutthroat Valley to get hurt, and their little bonding session was interrupted when Savnok and Asmodeus started causing a ruckus. Robin tried to warn them not to fight using their familiars, but they told him to shut up before sending their familiars at each other. However, Kalego ended up knocking both their familiars down before things could escalate any further, and he lectured everyone, including Robin, on how familiars needed to be kept under control by their masters in order not to hurt people around them. He then said that only Iruma had the right idea about that and ordered everyone to treat their familiars with respect. Following this command, everyone petted their familiars, including Iruma, and afterwards, Kalego put Robin through some hellish paperwork as punishment for embarrassing him. Some days later, Iruma was having lunch with his two buddies when he noticed during lunch that there weren't a lot of first years in the cafeteria, and then some girls from another class came by to play with them until they heard the school alarm start buzzing loudly. After the girls left, Iruma asked why they left so fast, so Asmodeus explained to him that they belonged to something called a battler, which was a group of students with similar interests who got together for the sake of raising their ranks. He also revealed that there was a group promotional exam that was reserved for battlers, and said it was possible to raise one's rank through personal achievements as well. Asmodeus then advised him to join a battler so he could rise to Dalet rank, and Iruma agreed. Just then, a swarm of upperclassmen swarmed the room to recruit the first years to join their battlers. Meanwhile, a crowd of senior battler members gathered outside the first-year tower, and a teacher reminded them to stay respectful toward other battlers while hunting for new recruits. He then threw away the microphone and announced that the rookie hunt had begun, causing the upperclassmen demons to rush into the room with weapons in hand. The battler recruiters started violently approaching students, and when one of them tried to get in Iruma's face, Asmodeus scared him off with a wave of flames. Just then, some upperclassmen tried to recruit Asmodeus, but he turned them down in a harsh way by burning their flyers and creating a huge ring of fire around himself so that they couldn't get close anymore. When they left, he explained to Iruma that the rookie hunt was only allowed for 66 minutes on the day the ban on battler trial periods was lifted after lunch break. He brought up the fact that some seniors got too violent during their recruitment, and said the ring of fire around them would surely barbecue anyone who tried to get close to them. Meanwhile, a bunch of students were being brutally snatched into different battlers, and Iruma started to feel scared, but Asmodeus said it was alright, because the battler which was in charge of controlling those situations, the student council, was on the case. Just then, the student council arrived in a stylish manner, and Iruma was so shocked when he saw that Ameri was the president that he screamed out loud. When Ameri heard Iruma's voice, she walked over for him and offered him a chance to join the student council battler. Afterwards, the rookie hunt came to an end, and the first years returned to their class where Kalego informed them that the next 3 days would be a battler trial period, which would enable them decide which battler they'd like to join. He then stated that choosing battlers was an important decision which was vital for moving up the ranks, and he advised them not to take it lightly. Iruma wondered which battler he should join, and then Asmodeus suggested they go check out the different battlers in the school after class. After class, Iruma and the gang went to the first-year tower, and because Iruma was such a pushover, he took flyers from every battler around, causing his hand to be filled up until Asmodeus burnt all of the papers into ashes. When Rame came to advertise her seduction battler, Clara didn't even hesitate before grabbing an application form. Just then, Iruma saw Led, Jazz, and Kamui, and when he asked them about their battler choices, Led said he'd be joining the game battler to learn new strategies. Jazz said he'd be joining the new magic battler because he wanted to become the next Doctor Strange, but Asmodeus knew all he wanted was money. Kamui stated that he'd be joining the Ladies' Studies battler, but Asmodeus immediately cut him off by saying it didn't exist. When Led asked Iruma what battler he'd be joining, Iruma said he didn't have anything in mind yet, but suddenly his ring started pulling him away. The ring carried him through the hallway and he ended up colliding with a demon named Kirio, who was carrying a backpack he was supposed to deliver to Santa for his next outing. When Iruma apologized, he saw that Kirio looked like he had just lost a boss fight with 0 healing items left, so he started panicking until Kirio got back up and explained that he was simply lagging in real life. Kirio then pointed out that Iruma's gluttonous feeder ring reacted to the necklace he was wearing because they were made using the same metal, and then Iruma started helping him pick up all of his stuff. Kirio revealed that he was only a bet rank despite being an upperclassman because he didn't have much magic, and he created his necklace so that he could store a bit of magic. He then said that his goal was to create a magical apparatus that would allow demons who didn't have a lot of magic to be able to use magic, and this impressed Iruma. After he left, Iruma and his crew checked out several battlers where things went horribly wrong, and as they walked through the hallway, they saw Savnok join a Demon King battler, which just ended up being a battler for nerds. That evening, Iruma told Sullivan about how his ring lost control sometimes, so Sullivan helped him tune it and told him to say a change called La Fire. When Iruma said it, it created a little burst of flame which Sullivan said was the weakest mode called Devil Mode, and then Sullivan switched it to the next mode called Demon Mode that created a much larger pool of flames. He then leveled it up to Ifrit Mode, which made a flame monster appear, and afterwards he advised Iruma to get by using Devil Mode since the rest were too dangerous. However, he told Iruma to use a spell called Pandarula if he really gets into trouble, and when Iruma tried to say it, he quickly covered his mouth while explaining that the spell was an extra special move that unleashes all the magic in the ring at once. The next day, Clara decided to join the Rock Paper Scissors battler. She hopes she's run into Goku training his reflexes there, and then Iruma visited the Execution Cannonball battler where he used his Devil Mode Libera magic to throw the ball at the captain. The captain caught the ball easily and told Iruma to join the club, but he turned him down. As Iruma walked through the hall, he got a text from Ameri, and as he tried to reply to her, the room next door suddenly exploded. When the smoke cleared, he saw Kirio and realized that the room he was in was the magical apparatus battler.